Just don't F me up.
Thanks for checking out Just Don't F Them Up podcast. Before you start this episode, we just wanted to give you a little heads up that there are some portions that have a little bit of feedback. We did our best to edit it out and muffle it, but you're going to hear portions of the audio that sound like you're getting feedback. It's not your headphones, it's the audio. It will be brief and it's kind of on and off throughout the episode. If it bugs you too much, skip ahead. But we feel very strongly that what Ira and Carolyn have to say is important, and we still wanted to submit this to you guys.
Just don't F me up.
Welcome to the shit show.
Woo! Thanks for joining us on Just Don't F Them Up, a podcast by two moms who have no idea what they're doing but are trying really, really, really hard.
Really
so
hard.
It's so hard that we made a podcast so we can learn from our fellow colleagues, our fellow parents.
Experts,
Because
other experts.
we need help.
We need all the help we can get.
Everything hurts and I'm dying. We are joined by Ira and Carolyn, and they work at Evolve Clinic in Plymouth, Minnesota.
Mhm.
We are super lucky to have them because they're both highly educated, highly trained in a variety of trauma-informed methods. They work with kids and parents, so family system, and we are super excited to learn more from them today. So let's just have you guys kind of introduce yourselves.
I suppose I'll go first. I do go by Ira, but my name is Ira actually. So
Oh, I'm
Ira
sorry.
Shai. No worries, because it's I. It makes totally a lot of sense. Ira Shai again, work at Plymouth at Evolve Clinic with Carolyn. I do couples therapy and individual family therapy. Family therapy, both adults and children, their children, and or adult children with their adult parents. I primarily use EFFT for those, which is emotion focused family therapy, or NARM, which is neuroaffective relational model, as well as CI, which is compassionate inquiry, that was developed by Gabor Mate. So, but also sometimes I use the mixed bag. So I kind of like go in and see what I take out, and I'll just use it, right? Whatever kind of works in the moment, right? I'm not like religiously following one model, right? Whatever helps me regulate myself, that's what I use in the moment, right? Because I don't know if my clients are like, Ira, this was not very much of EFFT. But yeah, that's and I have children too. I have a almost 12 years old daughter who does not see me as an expert in any area of my life. Like
Sure.
I'm at the totem pole on anything, right?
Yep.
And I have a son who is going to be 10 this December, who still sees me as a lovely individual about 50% of the time. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, half is good. Half is good.
I feel like that's more than probably all my kids put together. So
yes, I'm like in the sweet spot right now.
yeah. People say that I'll get there. I don't know that I necessarily believe that right now. I've got like the blinders on, but you know, someday.
Yeah.
Someday they'll be adults, and then we can go to we can come see you. I can bring my adult children and my adult self to therapy to work out, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Beautiful.
No diaper bag, nothing. Way easier.
Whoa.
Just leave the house. You don't have to bring snacks or water bottles or
that's right.
Milk or a diaper or extra clothes. Wow.
Yeah.
You don't have to check to make sure everybody has shoes on.
That's right. Yes. Yes, for the most part. Correct. Yes.
For the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my boys we could be in a situation when they're older where they show up somewhere without shoes. So kind of do their own thing.
It's good for grounding, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, great, Reef. You're a therapist. That's a reach of a grounding.
A reframe if I've ever heard one.
I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Carolyn. I work at Evolve Therapy as well. I work with families and couples and individuals, and my model is EFFT, EFT, and EFIT. And I mostly work with, again, like Ira, 10 and up. When I work with families, I love working with teens. I have teens myself, so I have a 15, 17, and 19-year-old. There's a study that was put out that they said raising teens is just as stressful as having a newborn.
Oh my God.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a lot of fun too.
We might edit that part out because of the sheer fear factor. I'm just kidding. You guys, your faces were both like, I should have started with, I'm super sarcastic.
Yeah.
I can so believe, though, that teenagers would be, in some ways, I feel like they're harder than little kids because the challenge, what I've heard and what I've talked to, just like other parents and family members, is like it changes from a physical challenge with little kids, like physically chasing them around and holding them and changing them, and to like all mental. Where are you? What are you doing? Are you telling the truth? What are you getting into? Who are your friends? Are they a good influence? Are you at school? Are you not at school? Are you failing school? Are you passing? Like it's yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's kind of what we work on with families, is trying to open that communication, trying to, for the child to be able to come to the parent. Because so many teens are, what I hear from them is, I don't want to tell my mom or dad because I don't want to put it on them. I don't want to upset them. I don't want to stress them out. I don't want to be a burden. So it's so interesting that they say that. And a lot of times they're like, no, don't bring my parents in. And I really think that's like the best possible thing we could do, is bring the parents in. But they're just so I have to work with them, and they have to build trust with me before we can kind of, okay, now I'm ready. Now I can trust that maybe if I don't feel like maybe my parent can't catch me emotionally, that they know I'll catch them emotionally.
Because as you're talking about this, I'm like, okay, how can we then, as parents, try to be developing the trust and the openness just from like, because like where I'm sitting, my kids are young. So are there seeds I can be planting for them to be able to talk to me, and for us to have that like openness, so they don't feel like, I don't want to tell my mom, I don't want to have my mom come in, I'm afraid to whatever. Like, help me, what can we do?
Well, I think there's the, validating their emotions when they're young, right? I'm sure you guys are already doing that. That's planting the seeds. And there's this EFFT that was Script Builder for Parents by Dr. LaFrance, and she kind of walks through it, and it's this like step 1, validate, step 2, demonstrate that you understand them and you know how they're feeling, and I get why you're upset right now. It makes sense why you're upset right now, but you still can't punch a hole in the wall. So I think that's the piece like nowadays that a lot of parents get confused with. They think that validating means that their child can still do all of, like, they can still punch a hole in the wall. Oh, it's okay. I understand why you're angry. It's a little bit confusing because it's letting them know that, okay, yes, I understand you're angry. I get it. And there's consequences if you punch a hole in the wall. So that actually is planting little seeds that when they're older, they can, it creates the safety so that they feel like they can, okay, I'm angry, I can talk to mom about it. And I think there's a balance too with volition of like being able to kind of foster that volition within the child, knowing that like, I want you to make your choice. I want you to be able to choose, and I'm here to guide you.
Yeah, I like that, like creating autonomy then, but also showing them that you're supporting them, showing them that you're still there for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
autonomy with bumpers.
Yes, autonomy with bumpers.
Can
then
do
it's also,
this.
yeah, it's like trusting the child that they will, like, they can make the right choice. They want to make the right choice. They actually desire to. And trusting that, and then it helps them know that as they grow older, I am capable. I can do this. And then it kind of creates also teaches them to be able to make choices. Instead of just kind of allowing life to drag them along, they stop and they think about it, and they're more intentional to make a choice. So you're kind of developing that within themselves, like within them, to be able to, again, not just kind of be dragged around.
I'm going to also piggyback a little bit on what Carolyn was talking about previously, and then I'll add a piece about communication. Because I just really love what you brought, Carolyn, about and I think, Myranda, you shared kind of the bumpers here, right? Because one of the parental jobs, because it is partially a job, right, is that to create an environment where the kid does not have to worry about the environment. And that's partly setting boundaries and consequences, right? Because if it's so expansive and open, it's actually overwhelming for a kid, right? If it's too rigid, right, it's harmful. And if it's too expansive, it's harmful too. So having some of those bumpers, right, is the protection of a kid, right? Because when there's an environmental or attachment failure, right, then the kid pays too much attention to the environment. Hence what you've shared, Carolyn. I don't think my parents can hold it, right? I think they're going to be upset. Don't tell my mom, right? Don't let them in, right? Whereas the parent models like, hey, you did that. I don't like it. And I'm okay. I don't like it. I don't have to like it for you to be okay, right? So we're kind of holding these boundaries. So then the child doesn't have to pay attention vigilantly to the environment. Then we can go internal. What's happening on the inside of you? Then we actually make space for the personhood of a child. Otherwise, just dealing with consequences in an environment, right? Then the arguments or the conflicts are usually about external things versus going inside, internal of the child, which is what regulation is, right? So the parent is responsible for managing the environment, right? So we get to say, hey, no punching of the walls, or however you want to phrase that, right? Because some people can say, I really get why you punched the wall. You must have been really angry. Something must have been really going on for you. That emotion must have been so big. You wanted to get it out. I get that, right? And I still don't appreciate it. Let's figure out a different way or something like that, right? So that's the part that I want to echo from Carolyn. Like, we parents, the best we can do with managing the environment. Sometimes the best we can do is not much, but we're still responsible for that part, right? And sometimes we F it up, right? And then we're like, oops, let me try this again, right? Because no parent is perfect, right? Perfect parents also F kids up, right?
Ooh, I like that.
Not a good thing, right? No such thing, and not a good thing if there is such thing, right?
Yeah.
And so the other part in terms of communication, and Carolyn, you will piggyback after me because I'll add some things.
Can I add something a little bit with that? Because like the perfect parent, then it's not modeling how to walk through our mistakes. So then the child doesn't have the tools to know how to, okay, when I fall down, when I hurt myself, I don't know how to then manage that because it was never modeled for me. So if you have the perfect parent, that's kind of, it's actually really good not to be a perfect parent and really calm about, like, I screwed up and I get it. And this is how and I'm okay to be able to say, I'm sorry, I messed up. And this is helping me grow as a person. So I love that. Yeah. So
I'm going to get that tattooed on my body.
Yes.
You actually don't want to be a perfect parent.
Yeah.
And proof because I have it on a tramp stamp.
But I think it's such a good reminder because perfect, like, if we show that we're perfect and we don't make mistakes and we do this, like, that sets that expectation for our kids then. And then and then what? Like, they're not going to be perfect. They're going to mess up. They're going to screw up. And then that's going to create more shame and more embarrassment and closing off for them, because making a mistake isn't normal for them and screwing up isn't normal. And like you were saying, Carolyn, then they don't know how to make a repair. They don't know they don't have the skills to navigate through that, because they've only seen someone who has it all together all the time.
Yeah. Well, perfect is, right, it's kind of an interesting umbrella, and underneath that is ashamed. Right?
Oh, yep. Preach. Get into that.
Yeah. Which is, under ashamed is what disconnected. I'm disconnected from my whole self, and I'm certainly having a difficult time to connect to you vulnerably. And kids, they pick up on it. Right? And so there's ultimately disconnection, right? Because like when you have a house, if it's a perfect house, you're like, this is very lovely and pretty. I don't know how to live in it, right? It's so sterile in some ways, right? But when it's too disorganized, you also cannot live in it, right? Because you can't find your shit. But you have to kind of keep a balance. So, yeah.
And this kind of brings it back to that question of, how do we start planting seeds to have that openness with our children? This is a piece of how we do that, because we're willing to go into our vulnerability and show our imperfection, which then makes them more comfortable and feel safer.
Yeah. So I was thinking of another question as you guys were talking about that. Like, I've heard, seen, read a lot of conflicting information about parents like sharing their feelings in a sense of like, when you do this, it makes me feel sad, or it makes me feel whatever. Like, my kids are in this bad habit of, when they get frustrated, they say, blah, 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 dummy. And they call me a dummy. Like, I mean, this morning it probably happened, I don't know, since 5 when I got up, 15 times. Like, anytime they're frustrated. And sometimes I'm like, that makes me so sad when you tell me I'm dumb. Is that helpful or not? Because I've seen things that are like, oh, you shouldn't put your emotions on them in that way, because that makes them responsible for how you're feeling. And so if that's not a good way to do it, how can we do it without putting it on them?
So my first thought on that is, like, what is the parental intent? Why would you not want your child to? Why do you want to teach them not to do that? And it is kind of teaching them how to be in community and how to be able to get along with other people. And so then, or, you know, so it's kind of slowing them down, because it sounds like they're very fast. It's kind of slowing them down, like what is happening in the moment.
You're right. There's so many different schools of thoughts, right? And then one of the best advice that I've heard from, I don't even know who, but it was sometime when my kids were little, right? There was one of the people at the hospital that said, you kind of have to do what works for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, you can have the best stuff on earth. It's not going to work, right? It's just not going to work, right? And so the other part here, Myranda, that you've shared, there's kind of a little bit of a worry that you're putting something on your kids, right? From what I'm hearing, I'm not necessarily hearing from you that you are putting to resolve or complete emotion on your kid, right? That would be different, right? What I hear from you, you're like, hey, when you call me dummy, that hurts my feelings. I don't like it, right? It's completed, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably as much as what happens, right?
Okay.
Right? They may change their behavior, they may not change their behavior, right? But that was a completed, right, loop there, right? So when you do this, it hurts my feelings. I don't like when you do it. Please don't do it again. They may do it again, and this might be a different thing to deconstruct, right? But I personally would not worry about that as you putting feelings or emotions on your kids, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I love that, Ira, because there's that, like, we only have to get it right 25% of the time. There was actually research that came out that we only have to get it right 25% of the time. So, yes.
I know, Myranda, don't say that to Myranda. Why? Carolyn.
Yes. So it's like I'm doing a great job. I
I'm
can
getting
meet
an
that
A.
bar.
I
Yeah.
am getting an A for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
See?
25%, and that is
Well,
That's
there's some
like a big
caveats to
tramp
that.
stamp.
Yeah.
okay, the caveats. What are the caveats?
Caveats there is that you're correct, right? We want to get it wrong a little bit because we want our kid to develop immunity where they can say, you know what, and my parents messed me up too, and look at me, I recovered, right? So it's a little bit of achievement, right? Because if you have this, again, perfect parent that never messes up, the kids are like, I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong, right? They can't even name it. I had perfect childhood, right? And they're not doing so well. But with the 25% or 1/3, right? Kind of the data is between 1/3, 25%. The 2/3 is that the 2/3 you try to repair it. You say, "Ooh, I did wrong. I'm sorry."
Mhm.
Right?
Mm.
The rest of it is just what it is, right?
Mhm. And it's
So-
the being able to be responsive, attuned, and engaged 25% of the time. So being able to be out of your own emotion and being able to really see your child's emotion 25% of the time.
Mhm.
Can you give
Okay.
us an example of attunement, like what that means?
It would depend on developmental stage, right? Because attunement to postnatal baby, right, infant is going to look very different as you guys know, especially you, Carolyn, a teenager, right? Because the attunement early developmentally will be to cues, preverbal cues, skin on skin, right? A lot of skin regulation, and attunement will be mom or dad, primary caregiver, right? Trying to discern between those, decipher those, and then acting accordingly, right? So attunement would be, oh, you cannot speak, but I'm going to look at you and I'm going to figure out what you need. I'm going to take that risk. If I mess it up, I mess it up. I'm going to try again. But that kind of what we call abstract attunement, right? You don't concretely tell me, right? But I want to get it right by you, right? And our biology is actually formulated in such ways that we mothers often, because we are the most neurologically connected to our kids, those things do get online. Sometimes they don't get online because of different things, usually environmental failures for a mom too. When mom is overstressed, right? When there's an attachment system with the partner that's like riddled with cortisol, right? There's a lot of things that can get in the way of that. But usually we have something that kind of kicks up in us. They're like, oh, I think this is the cry. I'm going to give this a try, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is going to be proverbial skin on skin, right? And then it's going to kind of develop into, I know so much about you that I think I know what that look is, right? That would be a bit of attunement. Even if I get it wrong, I still want to risk it and try to get it right by you. Whereas the concrete attunement would be more like, you know, your kid is like, I really like this phone that this other kid has, right? Or whatever they really want. And you listen enough and then you kind of get something for them that they want, right? Or you really know what their favorite food is. So when they have a bad day, you're like, hey, do you want to go get some burgers or something like that? That would be more concrete attunement, right? But it's paying attention where you know your person, right? Like you would know your partner. It's like you would know your kid. Oh, I think didn't get a nap. He's crabby, right? You want to go get a nap, right? So that would be what I would add to this, Carolyn. Yeah.
Okay. And then so just to kind of add to all of that, to be able to validate, and again, I'm big about validating emotions. I get why you're angry. You didn't get what you wanted. You really wanted that ice cream, and it's really hard when you don't get that. So I understand, like, it's kind of this validation piece. And the interesting thing is it doesn't always have to be done in the moment. Like, I know that a lot of times kids will have temper tantrums and they'll have a meltdown, and the parents like, I'm trying to validate, like, and it's not working. And well, one also, like, in that moment to start trying to do new skills is impossible. You cannot. So to be able to like ground and help your child like learn how to ground before those really intense moments is vitally important. But then afterwards, to be able to tell them, like, I get it. You were in Target and you were just done and I get it's hard, and I like it, so that's the attunement. Like, it's okay, you're a kid. This happens, and to be able to just to tell them that feels good to even an adult when someone says, I get it, it's hard. I know your best self didn't show up, and that's okay. So I think, so there's that attunement with your child.
I love that so much because I feel like I've fallen into the trap of like in the moment trying to validate. Like, I hear you, you're really mad right now, you're really mad, and it's not been sinking in, particular with one of my children. But I think the coming back after is going to be the ticket with him of like, he doesn't like it and he doesn't want to like sit down and talk. He gets really irritated with me, probably because I over talk to them, because hello, I'm a therapist and we're going to talk about our feelings all the time. But I think even just mentioning that, like, yeah, you were really mad, and like that happens sometimes, and just leaving it at that even, but after, validate it after. Why didn't I think of that? Like,
well, it's interesting too if you also ask them, so what would you do different? Asking them, like, I'm kind of curious, and sometimes they come up, maybe they don't have like just a curiosity, they might not have any answer, they might be like, I don't know, but then sometimes they actually do come up with things that they would do different. And it's interesting because kids will even say, well, I think I was hungry, like, and you're really surprised, you're like, wow,
that's good awareness. My gosh.
yeah.
I don't even know that sometimes.
Yes.
That wouldn't fly with my kids. They don't have that awareness. I hope they never hear this podcast, but no.
Well, I have my nephew who came to me and he's like, Auntie, I am hungry and tired, and I can't, like, he was just like, I can't, like, I'm hungry and tired right now. And I was like, okay, that's, you know what? I totally get it. I'm making you some food and you just go lay on the couch. So he's starting to be able to, and he's 5. He's 5. So it was pretty impressive, but I think it's to do with his mom and what she does, and then also the preschool he goes to. They are really trying to foster that, to be able to be connected to your body and recognize. And maybe he's just repeating at the same time, but that's okay too. That his mom might tell him, oh, when you're tired and hungry. But no, I think it's good.
I feel like in my house, tired is a dirty word. They would be literally falling asleep. My middle one has a sleep disorder, we've talked about on this podcast before, and he will be on the couch in the evening, like, can't physically keep his eyes open, and I'm like, bud, are you so tired? Do you want to just go to bed? No, I'm not tired. Nope, I'm not tired. Okay, I'll wait 3 more minutes and you'll fall asleep, and then I'll just carry you to your bed asleep.
Right. That's how my 2-year-old is right now. If she hears the word blankie, stuffy, crib, upstairs, anything that reminds her of where she takes naps or sleep time, it's like, no, not nap. And then
not tired.
Yeah. And then they like pass out on the stairs. Literally, she fell asleep on the stairs, like with her head like this. Like, oh, you weren't tired.
You're not tired.
You haven't slept in 5 weeks because you're going through a sleep.
Resting her eyes. Yeah.
Just resting. Yeah.
Resting her eyes on the stairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. That's tough. I wanted to add about that part around the anger, right? When we or kids protest, right? When there's that anger, and usually anger is acting in, so turning on inward, we can sometimes see those behaviors, or acting out, turning on the environment, right? Acting out is usually better than acting in, because acting in is seeing oneself as bad, right? For having needs or for having unmet needs. And it's any form of harm towards self. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's not so visible, right? But acting out would be, right, having a tantrum at Target, right? Kicking, screaming, maybe even reorganizing the shelves, right? Getting the food down, whatever the kids do sometimes even hitting the parent, right? My kids definitely, not all the time, but sometimes would hit. They would hit when they had so much emotion. They would just hit, and actually, that was very triggering to me. I did not like it, and I suppressed my emotion in those moments, for better or for worse. Right? I just kind of suppressed that, and it didn't help. Right? It just happened. But now, what I know later, when they're no longer hitting me, now I know this piece of information, right? Is that usually it's that anger is the protest, where they wanted something, right? That they ascribe the need to whatever thing they're seeing, and not getting that, right? They're protesting that, right? And so with 10-year-olds and up, right, there's their verbosity is very developed, so we can ask them to name a lot of things. With small kids, asking that question, it will be too nebulous for them. They wouldn't be able to really answer that. So usually, what, at least from what my understanding is, right, touch can be very regulatory, right? So a person who is in anger or rage response, when they receive skin on skin pleasurable touch, it helps them soothe a little bit, right? Because we can't buy all the things that kids want at Target, right? For better or for worse, right? You can just afford that. That's not much modeling around boundaries, right? And there's not much need with things, but there's something that the kid associated with that, right? And so with very little babies, right, up to like 5, the touch is what regulates, right? Because we have pleasurable kind touch, neurophysiologically, neurochemically, you cannot be in rage. One has to take precedence over the other one, right?
What?
Yes. So when you regulate with pleasurable touch your kid, right, you kind of get to their level, you touch them, right, you give them some pleasure on skin, right, your hands regulate them, or a hug, you hold them for some time. And sometimes that could be a little bit sturdier hold, sometimes it's a little bit gentler hold. It regulates their system.
Oh,
right?
mi gato.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that like signal overrides. So it's like bottom up stuff, where it's like that signal overrides the emotional dysregulation, and it sounds like they get connect to you.
Yes. Yeah. Because 0 to 5 is still very dependent on skin to skin, right? We're still very dependent, nervous system to nervous system, right? Whereas the older we grow, right, the more neocortex to neocortex we can be, the more body to body we can be. But very little kids are very dependent on that skin on skin contact, right?
Wow.
We're actually a pretty touch hungry society, if we think about it. I grew up in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine. So we tolerate closeness way more, even with strangers. When I moved here, my friends told me, Ira, you have to keep people at like 6 inches or 6 feet. I can't remember. 6 feet, it was COVID thing, right? 6 inches apart, which was very culturally different, because I can kind of like in Ukraine, you can be like in each other's faces, very close, you know, us very close to strangers. So you get that tactile exposure. And in US, you don't get that as much, because there's some cultural rules and norms around that. And it does spell out in our parenting, right? Do we actually touch our kids enough? And it's hard, because mothers are usually more overtouched, right? Somebody's touching us all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I know sometimes like my 4-year-old will come up and just like wrap around my leg and just like hang on to me. And sometimes I'm able to like stop what I'm doing and like give him that attention, but other times I'm like, you gotta get off me, I need a minute, like it just But it's a good reminder to like carve out the time to like give him that. And we've been trying to do like different things before bed, so like I've been rubbing their feet at night with this like lotion, and he loves
cute.
so much. He's like, do this one again, do this one again, do this one again.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's so soothing, right? It's so pleasurable, right? Yes.
In that, so when that just makes me think of like when he goes, that's wonderful. He goes and he grabs your leg, like he is. So a lot of times when we do an attachment history, we're assessing like as a child, if you reached out for comfort and then how your parent responded. So even if in that moment you can't give them comfort, that's totally fine. You don't have to, right? But to be able to validate it, oh honey, you want a hug, you want to be close to mom, like that's the attunement. I see you, you know, like giving him that, I get it piece. So that's just even wonderful. He's reaching out for that closeness to you. So that's great.
Yeah, he does that sometimes, and then other times he.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different days, different needs, different
Different
preferences.
feelings.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's this saying that a parent can have sort of two kinds of children. They can have children who want to be carried and children who don't want to be carried anymore. So when a child comes to you and says, Mom, Dad, I really want to be carried, right? And the parent responds, babe, but you can walk yourself, right? Those parents will have kids who always wanted to be carried, right? And then the parent who responds, oh, of course, I love carrying you, right? The kid will be like, oh, I think I can walk myself, right? Or they will be like a little bit and then they want to walk themselves, right? Because they completed that need, right? Where somebody really enthusiastically wants to meet their needs. Because meeting a need, right? This is where it gets tricky in that 25% is that you don't just meet a need, you really mean it. Like you really, with that gusto, you're like, I'm so excited I get to meet your needs, right? That's what counts in those 25%.
Well, and it's interesting, Ira, because you're talking about how it creates autonomy. So
Yeah.
how actually like to be able that security when you meet the need and the attachment need, then it creates more autonomy. And when we kind of block that, then it's an insecure attachment, which then makes the child need like kind of they're reaching out to kind of complete that never got completed.
It so makes sense then because it debunks that like age old, no, we have to teach them to be tough and we have to, no, they can walk, so they need to do that. And they can do this, so they need to do that. It like biologically, we're not set up that way. So that's not going to work. If you want autonomous children, we need to meet their needs then. Like it's the opposite of what has been taught to people historically. Like do the opposite, do what they're asking, give them the hugs, give them the snuggles, lay with them in bed, carry them, and then when we do that their need is met, and then they won't need that anymore, they won't ask for that, they won't require that, they'll sort of grow out of it.
Yeah, right. Like this is so fascinating. I'm also thinking about like being careful not to do it like in a fake way, like, oh, I love it when you grab poop out of your diaper and wipe it on the wall. It is my favorite. Like that's not, I don't want to create that either. This is about like action completion, which I talk about all the time with my clients. And I can't believe I was not thinking about that with kids. It's the same, probably same neurological, cognitive process of like you get your need met. The action completion is that you met your need with self-care, boundary settings, emotional regulation, like whatever it is, except kids can't do it on their own. In adult therapy, we're teaching our clients to do it themselves. But
they didn't get it met.
Right.
Every time we have people on this podcast, I'm like, my mind is literally blown. Like I learn so much.
Yeah. And it's so validating to hear like the real, like statistical, like the 25% or like the other 2/3 is about repair, like keeping those things that feel so much more doable than like when I see stuff online about like conscious parenting or about like gentle parenting, and like some of the things that I see, I'm like, it just doesn't feel realistic for me. And then I get into this like freaking out about like, well, I can't do that. Like I work a lot and I have like all these other things I'm taking care of. And then I like go into this like shame spiral. But hearing that just like gives me hope of like, there is a realistic, statistically proven, like maybe it's not as bad as I I'm not as bad as I think I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It makes it feel like we are doing okay. Like what we're doing we're not totally effing up our kids. Like, and it's not as hard as it feels in some of the moments, right? Like I so get what you're saying, Mackenzie, with like some of the online stuff. It just feels like you have to be on your game all the time. You have to be validating them. You have to be attuned to them. You have to do this. You have to do this. And like the way that it's put out there is that the expectation is you're doing that all the time. And that I can't. I lose my shit. I say rude things back to them. I do things that are not helpful. I'm like, I need a break from you. You got to go away. Like, you got to let me be. I do that stuff fairly often because my kids are really intense. And like having this talk just makes it feel like, okay, then when that happens, I go back, I make the repair, I continue on the path of like meeting their needs and trying to complete the circuits and like doing the things, and it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this, when you're like, to even be able to talk about, like your heart is you really want to be a good parent. You don't want to F up your kids. You're like your desire. Maybe not when they're young, but as they grow older, for them to know that shows them, like, we don't say those things out loud to them. I'm really trying to do the best I can as a parent because I love you so much, right? So that kind of incorporates a little bit of the parental intent. Like, I'm teaching you the things I'm teaching you because I love you and because I want to try to guide you so that you can kind of function in this society where you won't be hindered. So it's just that parental intent, so beautiful that we forget to tell our kids.
Yeah, so explicitly of like, I'm doing this because I love you more than I can verbally communicate to you.
I'm not like, this is not a punishment, right? This is I'm guiding you. I'm guiding you because I love you and I care about you. And then if they can, that actually builds trust as well. To be, I'm trusting my mom because I get it. I get that she is trying to guide me in life. And we don't make that explicit enough, I think, to kids.
I do say it sometimes, but they don't believe me.
I know.
I'm like, okay, you guys, I'm not saying this just to like irritate you. I'm telling you this for a reason. Like, there's a reason I want you to wear shoes when you go outside when it's 42 degrees. Like, there is a reason for that. I'm not just trying to irritate you. I'm trying to keep you safe. I'm trying to keep your feet safe. Like, I don't want you to get hurt. And they're like, meh. It doesn't sink in, but.
I actually want to add something that might be maybe a tad contradictory to what we're saying. Maybe not. But I think sometimes the good parents, the good kid, right? We have this idea that we have to be a good parent, and we have this idea that we want to have a good kid. And we actually have those ideas of what a good kid is to us. And in those ideas, right, sometimes we forget that our kid is already good. Having emotions is not being bad. Expressing emotion is not being bad. We don't necessarily always have to interfere, right? They can have emotion, they can have a tantrum. This will end too, right? Nothing is forever. We don't always have to do something about it, right? We can just say, oh, yep, you're feeling angry. This is hard, right? And this is enough. We don't need necessarily to interfere and create this positive emotionality, because negative emotionality is as viable for our survival as positive emotionality, right? So it's okay for them to be cranky or whatever, right? It's okay. Our teaching is that, you're upset. Your emotion is not bigger than me. I don't need you to be in positive emotionality for the household to be okay. You can be cranky. I'll check in with you. What's going on? You're a little upset? Okay, yeah, you're a little upset, right? Because we wouldn't, as adults, want someone like policing our emotions. Are you happy? Why are you not happy? Why are you upset?
Are you okay?
Yes. It's just, it wouldn't be helpful. This is actually not regulation, right? Not co-regulation, right? So something very true is actually true for kids, right? Is want to be seen, but they don't want to be talked out or talked into something. The emotion is just the messenger, right? It just communicates that something is going on, right? The original stuff is the need. So we tend to the need, not necessarily just to, undo or redo emotion into something else. Because I know for myself, right? I better now. Never going to be perfect, which is great because that's not what it's about, right? But I did have very low tolerance for my kids having negative emotions, right? It just wouldn't settle with me, right? Like I wanted them to be okay and happy, right? And so when they would be distressed, I would run to the rescue, right? Just meet their needs. And that fine, it was fine sometimes, but it wasn't fine sometimes because sometimes they just needed to be sad. It just needed to be upset, right? Or tired, or whatever that is, right? So it is okay to have negative, bad, quote unquote, right, emotions. It is okay, right? We're not doing anything wrong. It's just what it is.
And we don't have to fix it. We don't have to. I love that reminder. Like, yeah, you're really mad about this. And we don't have to and like I go into explaining and okay, but that doesn't, we can't always have what we want and we blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't have to do that. I can just, yeah, you're really mad about this. I get that.
Right. And that's so much less work. Like, I think maybe for you and I, we do so many behavior analysis, at work, constantly, why'd you do this behavior? Let's learn from it. What are you going to do next time? And I notice that pressure with my kids of you're feeling something uncomfortable. I have to make it better right now. The only way we're going to do it is if we analyze it in the moment. And they don't want to do that. I don't really necessarily want to do that either. I just want to help them feel better. I just was not thinking about take your all logic brain and balance it. Balance it with what I like too is if somebody says oh, that sounds like it was hard. I would be sad too and be like, thank you. Yes. And then I feel better.
Yeah. And the physiological logic of emotion is that, can you come into those trenches with me? When I'm sad, can you sit in that sadness with me for a little bit? Right? Because we sometimes do want to talk out. I know you want it, but we can't have it, right? And we kind of get lost in the linguistics of it, right? And we actually disconnect from our kids. They cannot keep up with us linguistically. This is not soothing to them, right? The more we talk, the more we lose our kids, especially little ones, right? 10 and up is a little bit different because they're a little bit more on par with us, still not on par, right? But below 10, it's you lost your kid after first sentence. I mean, not necessarily always, right?
Right.
And we therapists, we love to talk. Look at us. We can just talk and talk and talk and deconstruct and add this and spice it up, salt and pepper. And those poor therapist kids. Shut up, mother.
Yeah. I am so sick of being aware.
My kids were sick, like they always are, but I kept checking on, are you okay? How are you feeling? And my middle one, he's pretty sassy anyway, but he was like, I'm fine. Stop asking me. Okay, all right.
Yes. Because this is regulation for us, right? This is not regulation for a kid, which is okay because we matter too. Our regulation matters too.
Right? What? What's that now?
I was like, did you not hear me, or are you trying to be sarcastic with me?
Yeah, sorry. It's that. It's a disease, really, and but yeah, just
incurable.
It feels so much like we don't matter.
Yeah,
our needs don't matter. Our wants don't matter. Our literally, we are just. What did you call yourself not that long ago, Mackenzie? Something inside of a human carcass.
Yes, I am just a soul inside of a human carcass because this is just, I'm landed in this human body right now.
Yeah.
And
I live to serve these tiny humans that I've made.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, that's my own developmental trauma too, right? As a little I give. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, who's giving to me? Rage. I'm going to rage clean. And everything that's messy is everybody else's fault. And before you know it, my husband wakes up in the middle of the night. He's like, are we selling the house because we're ready for an open house to prepare for others? Like, so disconnected.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. If you ever in that rage episode cleaning, I will send you my address.
Yeah. Give it. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
I'll come, just be in your house, right?
Yep.
Whatever.
You're gonna come to my house?
Yeah, I won't clean, but I'll come over.
I will go to your house and
substitute.
clean. You go to my house and fix the hooligans.
Sure. I'll be in shenanigans with your hooligans. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. I don't think we're technically allowed to barter for services, so we won't bill it.
No, but it's yeah. Generosity, right? Yeah.
It's pro bono. We got to do pro bono.
It kind of made me think of something, Ira, when you were talking about this. And what is the intent behind, like when there's negative emotion, right? What is our intent? Is our intent to bring it down, and to make it stop? Is our intent, and I like how you said that, because it's so difficult as parents to allow your kids just to feel sad and feel angry and feel these negative emotions. We're like, no, don't stop. Like, stop feeling them. And so I think you're spot on about that. Like, being able just to give them space to feel and being okay with negative emotion. And I find that when we're not, that'd probably be good for us to do individual therapy and kind of work that out for ourselves. Like, why am I not good, like, with this negative emotion? And then I also see another thing is sometimes as parents, we unintentionally put our own emotion on our children, where we felt like that as a child, so then you must feel like that too. So and it kind of, and I see this a lot too. So to be able to work that piece out and to be aware of that is like, oh wait, you might not feel this way. But yeah, so it's kind of a catalyst of what came up when you were talking about that. I think it was good, Ira.
Mm-hmm.
That's another good example for me thinking about, but I mean, that's what I do with my clients, with my friends. Like, they're sharing something. My clients always make fun of me that, like, I live off of their tears, because if we get to a place where we're doing like some sort of sequencing or processing and the emotion comes out, I'm like, yes, like, this is beautiful, this is healing. They're like, this feels like shit. I'm like, but that's really good. And I sound like a crazy person, like so stereotypical therapist-y. But that's true for kids too. Like, yes, this is good, let it out. This is action completion.
Yes.
Oh
Why can I not think that way about my littles? Which is my own developmental trauma, right? Like, I don't want them to be in pain, and then, like, I get into fix-it mode, and
it's the, like, mama bear. Like, we are biologically inclined to protect them and to keep them safe and to do all of the things. And so we see them hurting or angry or sad or whatever, and it's like, oh, no, I'm going to fix this for you so you don't have to feel that, right? Like, I feel like it stems from even when they're infants. They cry, and we're like, okay, I'm going to start trying things. I'm going to start trying to help you, because then you don't have to be distressed. And the transition of letting that go a little bit as they get older is hard.
yeah. Yeah, because then I'm thinking of, like, Carolyn in her teens, and I'm like, okay, there's bigger emotions, bigger consequences as our kids get older. How am I going to regulate my shit when, what am I going to do when they come home from middle school and they're like, oh, Susie Q said I was blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I will fucking go to her house right now.
Like, yes, there's going to be problems that we're not going to be able to solve, and that's terrifying.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
We're dysregulated. Regulate us.
Yeah.
The next time your kid comes, it's like, don't tell mom anything, right?
Yeah.
Mom is neurotic. Like, she's gonna kill most of our friends because now I'm friends with Susie Q. So how do I bring this to my mom? Because it's middle school, right? On Monday I'm friends with Susie, but by Friday we're the enemies. So that won't fly with mom, right? We gotta protect mom from this.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out instead of rage murder.
Yeah. Sounds like you do a lot under rage.
Mhm.
Like a preferred emotion.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
she
just met
said.
you, and this is crazy. Here's my rage button. So call me maybe. You're right. Like I said, I will be calling you for sessions for myself and my familia.
Mi familia?
I'll make sure to pad my office in case you have a rage episode.
Mhm.
Thank you for
So
seeing
just make
me.
it messy, and then she'll
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
just put just keep a vacuum in the corner and like a dust rag, and then when she gets upset,
Yes. And I know how to trigger, right? I'll say your hair is not laying straight enough. Or whatever.
she just wants her office cleaned.
Yeah.
I don't think they do a good job there. Or should we not say that? Right? Should I say that they do good enough job? Because sometimes I see crumbs under the couch, and I don't think they vacuum under the couch. So
Oh, I hate that.
yes,
Yeah,
I
that's
did
my
have
other
a thought
trigger.
about. Yeah, that is your other. Yes,
Crumbs.
crumbs.
Oh my gosh, this was so amazing. Like, I feel like I learned so much, and there's going to be so much that so many people can take from all this information. I am feeling so thankful for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. It was lovely to meet you.
It was so great to meet you guys. You guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Guys, bye.